100 serendipitous encounters on the way to the top. Chapter 1: Public and State Figures. Shavkat Mirziyoyev, Uzbek statesman and President of the Republic of Uzbekistan. Curious fact: how to become president? Have you ever heard of this profession? Leading one's homeland. The job title is President, a word derived from Latin which, if translated literally, means sitting before. This term was first used in relation to an elected head of state in the United States. While the 1787 Constitution was being drawn up, a little later, in the first half of the 19th century, the countries of Latin America followed the USA's example, and Simon Bolivar, El Liberator, who led the continent from Spanish rule to independence, became president of three at once: Peru, Colombia, and Bolivia. In fact, the newly independent state of Bolivia was named after him. The current president of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, has traveled a long road to political leadership. Exactly 1 year after the collapse of the USSR in 1991, Mirziyoyev was appointed administrative head of the Mirzo Ulugh district of Tashkent. In 1996, he became head of the much larger Jizakh region in the east of Uzbekistan, making him one of the youngest governors in the modern history of Uzbekistan. And at the age of 46, Mirziyoyev took over as prime minister. Serendipitous encounters. A phenomenal memory and a book marathon. My serendipitous encounter with Shavkat Mirziyoyev happened in Washington in May 2018. He had arrived in the USA on an official visit at the invitation of his colleague, Donald Trump. I was deeply impressed by our president's phenomenal memory and ability to win our people. Before the gala dinner, the president of Uzbekistan was introduced to senior U.S. officials. As Mirziyoyev had already met with some of them, he immediately addressed each one by name, without waiting for the head of the protocol service to introduce them to each other. That was when I first noticed administration shining in the eyes of the American government officials. Perhaps it was his love of reading that helped our president develop such an amazing memory. Mirziyoyev speaks and reads two languages fluently, Russian and Uzbek, and in his speeches, he often encourages young people to read more. In fact, he strives to lay the foundation for this, introducing measures to popularize reading in our country. I particularly liked one of his entities. Let us, the leaders, starting with the Prime Minister, heads of districts, and the deputies, take the initiative ourselves and donate 10-20 books to the school where we studied, or to regional libraries. I have decided to join this book marathon too. And we'll be holding one of the presentation of this book in my school, the Gymnasium of World Languages. I will also donate several copies to the school library. Life lesson. Human happiness lies somewhere between freedom and discipline. Observing how Shavkat Mirziyoyev communicated with representatives of American political and business circles, I was reminded of the words of Dale Carnegie, an expert in effective communication, who said, "Remembering the name of water is the art of government. To forget is to be consigned to oblivion." Carnegie believed that many famous people rose to success by consciously memorizing and using the names of those they were speaking to. After my serendipitous encounters with our president, I came to the following conclusion. The ability to remember a name correctly isn't just important to political. It's crucial for your business and social life too. The hero of Mikhail Bulgakov's History Heart of a Dog, Professor Preobrazhensky warned, "Don't read Soviet newspaper until lunchtime." Shavkat Mirziyoyev, who has born in the USSR, is well acquainted with the Soviet version of freedom of speech, whereby no one is guaranteed freedom after speech. In the early years of Uzbekistan's independence, the media followed a similar vein, but Mirziyoyev's election in 2016 ushered in an era of change. The president declared an amnesty for famous journalists. Newspapers and other mass media outlets began to jettison old Soviet formats while gradually broaching a wide range of sensitive issues, from the economy to corruption. Although these topics may not always reach the optimal level of coverage, in such cases one can't but recall the words of French writer Albert Camus. A free press can, of course, be good or bad, but most certainly without freedom, the press will never be anything but bad. Despite these positive dynamics in the work of independent media, some still maintain that freedom of speech is tantamount to permissiveness and, as such, poses a threat to Uzbek society, which has only recently emerged from an era of strict censorship. In my opinion, the most balanced position was expressed by one of the personages in this book, Vladimir Posner. Freedom of the press, freedom of speech is like a corridor. In some countries it's wide, in some it's narrow, but in either case the corridor has walls, and whoever tries to break through those walls will have trouble, regardless of which country they live in. I'm convinced that Shavkat Mirziyoyev will go down in the history of Uzbekistan as the first president who tried to widen this corridor, while at the same time maintain a balance between discipline and freedom of speech, in which people would feel comfortable and confident. As the legendary physiologist Ivan Pavlov said, "Human happiness lies somewhere between freedom and discipline."